Okay, so you know that feeling when like you're trying to, achieve something, get somewhere in life, and it seems like every article you read, every book you pick up, everyone you talk to,
Right.
it's like the same advice over and over and over again, like get uncomfortable, push yourself, step outside your comfort zone.
It's almost like the like prerequisite, right?
Yeah.
For self-improvement. Like if you're not uncomfortable, you're not really like you're not really moving forward.
Exactly. And so today on this deep dive, we're looking at a completely different way of thinking about all of this.
Okay.
And we're going to be exploring the work of Kristen Butler, and in particular, her book, The Key to Positivity.
Okay.
And what is so fascinating about this, and I think so timely, is that her core message really challenges this idea that we have to be uncomfortable to grow, to achieve, to be happy.
Discomfort is the key to success.
Totally.
Right.
Okay, so we are looking at excerpts from Kristen's book where she shares her own personal stories, her observations of others, and then some really practical steps.
I love it.
And for you, the listener, I think what is so compelling about this work is that it really offers the potential for you to change your entire approach to how you go after your goals, how you live your life, how you feel on a daily basis.
I like that.
What if you could achieve everything that you wanted and be content without having to battle this constant stress and worry that comes from like pushing yourself into the unknown all the time?
Yeah, I love that.
So think of this as like a shortcut to being well-informed about this totally different perspective.
That's good.
Our mission with this deep dive is to really understand what Kristen Butler is arguing. And she's arguing that lasting success and genuine positivity are not a result of like perpetually pushing your limits, but rather they come from really understanding and thriving within your own comfort zone.
I like that.
So we are going to unpack the key ideas that she presents in support of this fascinating approach.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start right off the bat with this idea of the comfort zone.
Yes.
Because one of the first things that Butler argues is that how we typically think about the comfort zone is just wrong. She even refers to this constant advice to step outside your comfort zone.
Yes.
It's kind of a dirty little phrase.
I love that.
She says that as a society, we tend to look down on the idea of being comfortable. It's almost like a sign of laziness or a lack of ambition.
Yeah, you're not hustling enough.
Yes, if you're content, then you're not striving hard enough.
Right, exactly.
So the common belief, she says, or the mantra as she calls it, is that your dreams are on the other side of your comfort zone.
Right.
And what's happened is that we've accepted, as a result of buying into that, this idea that we have to accept stress and anxiety as part of the deal when we're trying to achieve.
It's part of the game.
Yes.
Right.
It's almost become like something to brag about how busy you are.
It is a status symbol.
Yeah, and how much you're taking on, how you're pushing yourself.
Yeah.
But Butler says this whole idea never resonated with her.
Okay.
And that's what led her on this like 2-decade-long exploration into the real connection between feeling comfortable and actually achieving what you want in life.
Okay, so what did she find?
So her conclusion, and this is based on her observations of people who are really living fulfilling lives, is that true and lasting success doesn't come from constantly striving outwards.
Right.
It actually comes from really nurturing what's happening inside your comfort zone.
Okay.
And she actually believes that really enjoying the process makes reaching those goals happen faster.
Yeah. So that's really interesting because we know that the idea of like stepping outside your comfort zone really gained a lot of traction, particularly after Alistair White's paper in 2008, where he kind of linked that idea to optimal performance.
Right.
Right. His research kind of suggested that pushing those boundaries leads to peak performance. But what's interesting is what Kristen is offering here is that maybe it's not about peak performance, but sustained performance and well-being.
Right.
So there's a nuance there that I think is important to kind of tease out.
Yeah, his paper was really looking at a variety of studies that showed that we perform best when we're challenging ourselves. But what is so interesting is Butler's counter-argument to this.
Yeah.
She suggests that when you are constantly pushing yourself too hard, what happens is you actually get burned out.
Yeah.
You lose motivation and you get stuck in this like chronic state of stress and anxiety.
Right.
And it becomes so ingrained that even when you try to relax, you actually feel guilty.
I've been there.
Right. For not doing more.
Absolutely.
It's like this constant pressure in our society to always be hustling, to always be striving for something more.
Yeah. It's like that glorification of busy.
Yes.
Right. And of hard work and sacrifice. And, we think about it like, when people look back on their lives, one of their biggest regrets usually is not like not working harder.
Right.
Right. It's usually not spending enough time with loved ones or like not enjoying their life more or doing the things that really lit them up.
All right. So it really makes you kind of reevaluate what's important.
It does. Yeah.
So if it's not this constant pushing and striving, then what is it?
Right.
And so Butler then shifts into this idea of the importance of our beliefs.
Okay.
And she describes beliefs as kind of like this automatic programming for our brains.
Interesting.
So when we think the same thought over and over and over again, our brain turns it into this automatic program that just runs in the background.
So you don't even have to think it consciously.
Right. You don't even have to think about it. It just becomes like your assumed reality.
That makes sense.
And the problem is when these beliefs that we have are limiting beliefs.
Right.
So think about someone who has the belief that I'm a terrible public speaker.
Right.
Versus someone who has the belief I can share my ideas effectively.
Totally different experiences.
Two completely different experiences shaped by that underlying belief.
Yeah. And it's interesting because this kind of connects to Michael Shermer's idea that we tend to form our beliefs first, and then we look for evidence to support them.
Yes.
Right. So we're kind of going through life looking for evidence to support what we already believe is true.
Yeah. It's like that person who always seems to have good luck.
Right.
No matter what.
Yes.
And then there's the person who is always waiting for something bad to happen.
Right. Or things are always going wrong for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And they kind of create that reality for themselves.
Right.
So this is what Butler is saying, is that our lives tend to mirror our beliefs.
I love that.
And that is why changing those really deep-seated beliefs, especially the ones that were formed, when we were kids, can be so challenging.
It is, because we've got years of proof
Yes.
that our beliefs are accurate.
Yes. So I want you, the listener, to think about what are some beliefs that you might be carrying that could actually be hindering you.
That's a good question.
Maybe stifling your creativity, maybe preventing you from being more motivated or really blossoming into who you want to be.
Absolutely.
So Butler lays out this framework of the 3 zones of living.
Okay.
And I know this can sound a little woo-woo,
Sure.
but just stay with me on this, but I think it's really powerful.
I'm here for it.
Okay, so the 3 zones of living are the comfort zone, the survival zone, and then the complacent zone.
Okay, so the complacent zone.
Yes. So let's start with that one, because she says this is a state that's really dominated by fear and hopelessness. And a crucial distinction here is that complacency is not comfortable.
Got it.
People in the complacent zone tend to feel very directionless.
Yeah.
They're filled with self-criticism, fear of the unknown, loneliness, lack of confidence.
Right.
Butler even shares her own experience of when she was in her complacent zone.
Okay.
And she said it was a really low point in her life. She was dealing with depression and anxiety weight issues.
Wow.
Financial trouble. And she describes not being able to get out of bed for weeks.
Oh my God.
And just really having everything fall apart.
Okay, so then we've got the survival zone.
Yes. And this is where we see this forced resilience, this relentless pushing of ourselves.
Yeah, that hustle mentality.
Yes. And it's often fueled by that no pain, no gain mentality.
Absolutely.
Butler talks about her early experiences, how even though she was achieving things, she talks about her success selling on eBay.
Okay.
She was completely ignoring her body's signals of stress, of exhaustion, of feeling completely overwhelmed.
Yes.
So she was getting by, but she was definitely not thriving.
Right. And we see that a lot, in our society, where it's like we glorify the overworking.
Yes.
Right. We glorify that kind of stress as progress.
Yes.
And so we become skeptical of anything that suggests ease.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, that's not real work.
Exactly.
Right. You've got to be grinding.
Right. You've got to be suffering.
Yeah.
And that leads us to the comfort zone.
Yes.
But as Butler redefines it.
Okay.
So this is not a place of stagnation as we traditionally think of it.
Right.
She describes it more as this bubble of protection.
Oh, I love that.
So instead of being this boundary that holds us back,
Yeah.
the comfort zone becomes a source of safety,
Oh,
confidence, clarity of thought, and
yes.
creativity.
Interesting.
It's where we experience emotions, like
Right.
trust in ourselves, connection with others,
Right.
feeling grounded, mental clarity, a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
She talks about thriving with ease,
Okay.
about creation happening almost effortlessly.
I love that.
And she says that the core belief of someone who is really living within their comfort zone
Okay.
is that life is intelligently designed and everything is always working out for my highest good.
Oh, wow.
All I need to do to be successful is to be myself and follow my own inner guidance.
Okay, so you can call that inner guidance intuition your gut.
Yes.
Whatever feels right to you.
Yes.
Your higher power.
Yes.
It can be anything.
So how do we thrive within this comfort zone?
Right.
And a key part of that is the relationship we have with ourselves,
Okay.
specifically self-esteem and self-trust.
Yeah.
Butler says that constantly pushing ourselves outside of this zone
Yeah.
actually damages both of these.
Oh.
And I love this analogy that she uses. She says, think about a relationship that you have with someone else where trust has been broken.
Yeah.
Your confidence in that relationship diminishes.
Absolutely.
She says the same thing happens in your relationship with yourself.
Oh, wow.
When you consistently disregard your own needs and your boundaries
Yeah.
by constantly forcing yourself into situations that feel uncomfortable or stressful, you start to lose faith
Right.
in your own ability to care for yourself.
That makes sense.
So this ongoing pattern of living outside our comfort zone creates this negative cycle of emotions that gradually erode self-esteem.
Yeah.
And it makes it harder to trust our own judgment.
Yeah.
Think back to when you were younger,
Okay.
and maybe there was a time when you were pushed to do something that felt really uncomfortable or stressful. What messages did that send to you?
Yeah. What did you internalize from that?
Right. When we are told, either directly or indirectly, that what feels natural to us or what feels right for us isn't important. This can lead to us developing a negative self-image.
Absolutely.
This feeling that there's something inherently wrong with us.
Yes.
And then this leads to us trying to fit in with external expectations that might not be aligned with our own...
Our true selves.
Yes, our true selves, our unique talents, or what we actually enjoy.
Right.
Butler gives this great example of like siblings who grew up in the same house.
Yeah.
And they have totally different comfort zones and natural inclinations.
Of course.
What feels totally easy and enjoyable for one might be the source of like real anxiety for the other.
Totally.
And Butler refers to Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor's research on the amygdala, which is like the brain's alarm system for stress.
Oh, wow.
And Dr. Taylor's work shows that when we feel threatened or overwhelmed by constantly being in unfamiliar or challenging situations, our amygdala is triggered and we feel anxiety.
Right.
And then what happens is our brain shifts into this survival mode.
Oh, wow.
Which makes it harder to learn new things and solve problems effectively.
Interesting.
And Butler argues that this is exactly what's happening when we're constantly living outside of our comfort zone.
Right. So the more we operate outside of our comfort zone, the more we're actually hindering our ability to learn and to grow.
Exactly.
Wow.
So within our comfort zone,
we
have access to our innate self-trust.
Okay.
A healthy sense of self-esteem, genuine self-confidence, and the ability to be really authentically ourselves.
I love that.
Living outside of it
sends
this message to ourselves that we're somehow not enough as we are.
Yeah.
Now, Butler talks about this idea of connecting with our inner wisdom.
Okay.
That calm, gentle, guiding voice that we all have. And it is so different from the constant mind chatter that we experience and the doomsday voice.
Oh, yes.
You know, that's always telling us what could go wrong.
The worst case scenario voice.
This, exactly. And what's interesting is Butler shares that as a child, she had a really strong connection to her own intuition. It was like this compass that was guiding her.
Right.
But as she got older, all the external advice, all the opinions, even when well-intentioned, gradually like drowned out her own inner voice.
Wow.
And it led her down a path of trying to please everyone else.
Right.
Which ultimately led her to this point where she felt like she had lost herself in everything else.
Okay.
So what she realized is that when we're constantly seeking validation and direction outside of ourselves, living outside of our comfort zone in that way, it creates this endless search
Yeah.
for fulfillment.
Right.
But can never truly be found externally.
I agree.
And this ultimately leads to, like, inner turmoil.
Yeah. It's almost like we are conditioned to look outside of ourselves
Yes.
for the answers, for the guidance, for the validation. And
Yeah.
it never works.
And she uses this really interesting analogy
Okay.
of the soldier returning home from war.
Okay.
And how at first there's almost a suspicion
Right.
of peace.
Yes.
This difficulty in really trusting the
Right.
safety and the quiet.
Yeah.
And so what Butler is doing is she's reframing the comfort zone as this ideal home.
I love that.
It's this inner sanctuary for peace and healing and being our true selves.
Yeah.
And it's where achieving success and feeling fulfilled
Right.
are absolutely possible.
Yeah. So to help us understand how to build this inner home, this inner sanctuary,
Yes.
she introduces the C pyramid,
Yes.
which has 3 levels: safety, expression, and enjoyment.
Yes. So think of this as like Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
But for our inner world, for our comfort zone.
I love that.
So the first level of this pyramid is
It's a
safety.
perfect.
And this is all about really understanding our own personal needs
Right.
and what makes us feel secure.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like the prerequisite to being able to communicate those needs
Right.
to ourselves and to others.
To the people around us.
Yes.
Absolutely.
She talks about the importance of boundaries.
Yes.
And boundaries are not about trying to control others.
Right.
They're about clearly defining our own preferences for what feels comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
And that's a sign of self-respect.
Mm-hmm.
And it also invites respect from others.
Yes.
So she gives examples of different kinds of boundaries.
Okay.
Like knowing when to say no
Yeah.
to protect your time and energy.
Right. Yeah.
And communicating when you're feeling uncomfortable in a situation.
Mm-hmm.
And also setting expectations for how you want to be treated in relationships.
Absolutely.
So she talked about aligning our surroundings and the choices that we make with what really feels safe for us.
Yeah.
This can be everything from like choosing to live in a quiet environment
Right.
over a bustling city
Yes.
to making sure that we're not exposing ourselves to like
Mhm.
things that we're sensitive to,
Yeah.
like cigarette smoke, or picking a career path that is aligned with our personality,
Exactly.
like a more social role.
Yeah.
If we're a very outgoing person.
Right.
And I love this example that she gives.
Uh-huh.
She says, imagine if you allowed someone into your home
Yeah.
who was like disruptive and disrespectful.
Right.
You wouldn't feel safe.
Of course not.
You wouldn't feel relaxed.
No.
And in the same way, what we allow into our inner living space,
Mhm.
our thoughts, our beliefs,
Yeah.
our habits, shapes how we experience life.
Yeah, makes sense.
And essential for that inner sense of safety
Mm-hmm.
are the 4 key areas of self-care.
Okay. I'm ready.
And if we pay attention,
Yeah.
these areas will give us signals
Right.
when something is off,
Okay.
when we're in pain, when we're feeling discomfort.
Good to know.
So the 4 areas of self-care
Okay.
are physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Got it.
So physical self-care.
Okay.
She says this is directly tied to our comfort zone
Okay.
when we're ignoring our physical well-being. Things like not getting enough sleep, not eating well, not moving our bodies enough.
Right.
This is often a result of pushing ourselves too hard
Right.
and living outside of our comfort zone.
That makes sense.
Mental self-care
Okay.
is about shifting away from those negative thought patterns
Right.
that are so easy to get caught up in
Yes.
and cultivating more empowering and peaceful
Right.
ways of thinking.
Yeah.
And this is where practices like mindfulness and meditation
Mm.
and consciously reframing our thoughts
Yeah.
come in.
Makes sense.
Then we have emotional self-care.
Okay.
And this is about tackling the misconception
Right.
that our emotions are something that just happened to us.
That we have no control over.
Right, that we have no control over them.
Yeah.
And Butler highlights the work of Brene Brown.
I love Brene Brown.
Yes.
Who's great.
Who emphasizes the importance of acknowledging our emotions, identifying them,
Mm-hmm.
and learning how to communicate them in a healthy way.
That's
And that is a path to greater inner peace.
makes sense.
And then spiritual self-care.
Oh, okay.
And this is that connection to something bigger than ourselves,
Yeah.
whether you call it spirit or God.
For the universe. Or
Yes, or the
I like
universe.
that, whatever.
Or just a sense of interconnectedness.
Yeah.
This is a really important part of building that strong and resilient comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Butler shares her own experience of feeling adrift
Okay.
and lost
Yeah.
when she was really disconnected from this aspect of herself.
That makes sense.
And she emphasizes that acknowledging our spiritual side
Right.
helps us to feel more whole, more complete.
Yeah.
Practices like prayer meditation, spending time in nature, engaging in activities that bring you a sense of awe and wonder.
I love that.
These all can help to deepen this connection.
Yeah.
So I want you, the listener, to think about each of these areas of self-care.
Okay.
And how you can nurture them in your own life.
Absolutely.
So moving up the C pyramid,
Yep.
we get to the second level, which is expression.
Expression. Okay.
And Butler points out that how other people see us can often be very different from how we see ourselves.
Yeah.
So someone who is always pointing out problems might be seen as a complainer.
Right.
But they might see themselves as just someone who's trying to be
realistic.
Yeah. Or someone who talks a lot about other people might think that they're just being informative.
Right.
But other people might see them as gossipy.
Totally.
And Butler says that every choice that we make,
Okay.
every action that we take is an opportunity for self-expression.
I love that.
And for getting clearer on our preferences.
Yeah.
So she says that authenticity is about being the fullest version of yourself.
Okay.
And living in alignment with your inner comfort zone.
Right.
And showing up in a way that's true to that.
I love that.
And she makes this really important point that how we choose to express ourselves is something that we have control over.
Right.
Regardless of our external circumstances.
So it's not about what's happening around you.
Right, or what other people are doing.
It's about your choice.
Yes, it's about making a conscious choice.
I love that.
So we can choose to express ourselves consciously, intentionally, in ways that reflect our true selves, our values, what we really want, rather than just reacting automatically or passively to whatever's going on around us.
Not just being reactive.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she talks about this idea that when we engage in this intentional self-expression, we gradually shift how we see ourselves.
Okay.
And we start to counteract those feelings of inadequacy or not being enough.
I like that.
She encourages us to really think about our self-image. What are the beliefs that we hold about ourselves?
Right.
What are the habits that we engage in?
Yeah.
And are there any areas where there might be an internal conflict?
Interesting.
Okay, and then finally we get to the top of this C pyramid, which is enjoyment.
Enjoyment.
And Butler says very clearly that life is meant to be enjoyed.
Yes.
That it is our birthright.
I love that.
And what she says is that when we consciously appreciate and enjoy what we already have, we create these positive emotional experiences that actually fuel further growth and positivity in our lives.
It's like a cycle.
It is a cycle.
Yeah.
And she talks about these practical ways to amplify enjoyment in our lives.
Okay, give me some.
So the first one is fun.
Fun. Okay.
And she emphasizes that fun is not something that we have to wait for.
Right.
It's actually an attitude that we can cultivate.
Yeah.
Even on those challenging days.
I love that.
So she encourages us to identify things that we genuinely find enjoyable and make them a part of our lives.
Absolutely.
Then there's engagement and that feeling of being completely absorbed in an activity that we love.
Yes.
Where time seems to just disappear.
Like flow state.
Yes, and the outside world fades away.
Love it.
And she emphasizes that it's important to really savor these in-the-zone moments.
Stay present.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then gratitude.
Okay.
Butler calls this like the most accessible path to building that strong comfort zone because there are always things that we can appreciate.
Yeah, even on the hard days.
Right, even when things are really tough. And what she says is that when we appreciate the blessings that we already have,